folks, before I dive in with my professional intro, I just want to say I always encourage our classes and speakers to groove a little during that countdown, and it'll be an indelible image in my mind forever is our speaker Cedric today doing a little dance in the forest to that. So thank you very much for that, Cedric. That was magnificent. My name is Jesse, everyone. Welcome to another exciting Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants program. We've got some new faces in the crowd today, so if you're joining us for the first time ever, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And you're catching us on an auspicious day. We are nearing the end of our school year with over 500 programs we've done this year alone. It's been crazy and so much fun. Everything's on our YouTube channel if you want to check them all out like 3 weeks or 3 years from now. Lots to explore and discover. You're also catching us as we wrap up with our final program of Canadian Environment Week. All week long, we have had Fisheries and Oceans, Parks Canada, Environment and Climate Change, and more scientists from coast to coast to coast across this amazing country featuring their storytelling and science stories. It's been such a wild ride. Check out the full listing below. They're all on our YouTube channel, as I said, too. Now, I'm so excited today because a couple of years ago, I moved from Toronto to Corner Brook, Newfoundland. So I went as far east as you can basically go in this country to one of the most beautiful areas in the world near one of the most iconic and awesome national parks, and that is Gros Morne. A lot of you kids might be familiar with Banff. We've got a bunch of Albertans today. Banff is like an icon on a global scale. Well, Gros Morne should be right there with it. It is an incredible place, and it's been so thrilling over the last year to get the chance to feature some stories from this special area with you. So I'm so excited to go back to the woods with Cedric Davignon. He is going to take us on a little bit of a journey of forest health restoration today. So I hope you guys are as excited as I am about how we can bring back forests, help predict habitat for species, and sort of bring back the wild. Without further ado, thank you so much, Cedric, and take us away, man. Welcome back.
Whoa, thank you. Pleasure to be part of the amazing time you allow us to share with you guys, with all the classrooms. So bonjour tout le monde. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure for me, Cedric, to be here with you today out of Gros Morne National Park. And this is only one park out of 47 national parks. So if you look at a map of Canada, you have a bunch of parks, a bunch of national historic sites, and all of these are yours. So wherever you live in the country, please make sure you get out and visit them. So there's a map, exactly. You see the big map there? So basically, all of these sites, all of these parks are yours. Make sure close to your place, you visit them, and whenever you have a chance, or if you haven't done it yet, come down to beautiful Newfoundland and Labrador. We're here on the west coast of the island in Gros Morne National Park, a park of majestic mountains carved by glaciers, where mountains were moved by continental collision. And today, this landscape is covered with beautiful forest. It's a forest called the boreal forest, and you can see the boreal forest is a green belt that covers the north of the Canadian province up to Alaska from here, Newfoundland. And basically, it's a forest that is not only over Canada, it's over the whole North Pole. So all around the planet through Asia, Russia, China, Scandinavia, you see a big belt that covers the whole north, circle around the North Pole, basically. It's the biggest biome in the world. And everybody take a deep breath. Exhale. All these trees are helping us out by capturing the carbon dioxide and releasing the oxygen. So very important. But let's move back close to the forest, and you'll see the forest floor now. The forest is just perfect. We have beautiful flowers. These are the bunchberry, and basically in flower right now. Clusters of orange fruit in the fall. And this boreal forest is mostly coniferous trees. So trees with needles. Some needles are small and pointy, go all around the twig like spruce. Some other needles are a bit more flat on both sides, more chewy, more palatable for herbivores, like the fir tree. Same thing than your Christmas tree. And it's a beautiful forest. But there's some places where something has happened in the forest of Gros Morne. I wonder what could happen. Maybe, oh, I can hear an animal coming close. There's something on the go. Let's just, oh, well, we have a moose here. And we have a moose browsing here on a fir tree. Oh, what is the story here? Oh, well, this is incredible. And let's come back to the trees. In places in the park, you'll see trees that have lost their main branches. And you'll see places that became what we call moose meadows. Moose have just eaten a lot of the forest, so much that we actually had to do something. There's a few moose meadows. You can see images now, I believe, of places that There's no trees, but moose were there. They ate whatever they could, hardwood trees. Fir tree is usually their survival food. They munch on this. What you see now is only grass and a few spruce that were never touched, moose meadows. And moose were responsible. They were actually introduced to the island of Newfoundland about 100 years ago as a source of food. And in a national park like Gros Morne, where their animals are protected, it went overboard. They multiplied, not having much predation. Maybe a black bear, maybe coyote, maybe an eagle, but on small animals or injured animals. So it went very, very well for moose. And in the park here, what we did in 2011, we decided to start a moose management program. We looked at a few options, and we decided to have a sustainable harvest of moose. And not park people, it would be local resident of Newfoundland and Labrador that would apply for it, get the license. Not everybody gets the license, but between 400 and 1,000 licenses per year. And half of these are usually successful. So about 300 moose every year were reduced from the park, but they kept multiplying. But quick story is that from about 5,000 moose in this park, we moved down to 2,000 moose, which is now manageable. That was stage one, but we still have these moose meadows, these places where trees were not able to grow. So what do you think we should do? You don't have tree growing, maybe we could help Mother Nature, and that's what we did. We decided to grow trees, and to start growing trees, what do you need? You need to go get seeds. So that's what we did most of the last year and the year before. So I'm going to show you a few pictures now where you'll see some colleagues going out with big buckets harvesting seed. And the seed I want to talk about is from this very charismatic tree, the red maple, part of our beautiful flag from our beautiful country. So basically we went out and we pulled on the branches with buckets, and then you just grab the seeds. Eventually with a big hoop, a big red piece of fabric around a big giant hula hoop, we would get the seeds that fall down in this, then gather them together, often wet. We would put them on racks. We would dry out the seeds on racks, and then for a good few weeks, you'd see the seeds are green, then you dry them out. And we even created a machine using a vacuum cleaner, and our little seeds will fall down in the wings of these helicopter seeds. With the vacuum would be aspire from one side, and then the seed would fall down. So it's a sorting mechanism. Let's see if we can watch this noisy video. All right, and so basically then we would have to sort the seeds. Sometimes we'd cut them, see if they're good. And once we have all these seeds, and we had 12.3 million seeds is what we got now. The way to preserve your seed for a long time is in cold temperature. So we put them in mason jars in a freezer. That's where they live now. They are dormant. But this spring, what we did, we took a few of these, we put them in little bags with soil, what we call stratify them. So we kind of wake them up, a bit like it's the spring, and the snow is melting, the seed in nature are going to start growing. Well, that's what we did, and eventually our little trees grew a little bit taller, and this is where I want to bring you out to the center of our operation, our greenhouse, and I want to introduce you to one of my colleagues. So let's go check out what happened with these red maple seeds. All right, so I'm here. I'd like to introduce you to Owen Bartlett, who's the lead technician for the forest cell restoration here in Gros Morne. Thank you for being with us, Owen. We want to know more about the red maple trees and other trees that we've been growing here.
All right. Well, hi everybody. Pleased to meet you all. In our little enclosure here, we have a bunch of the red maples that were from the seeds that Cedric is telling you about that we collected. I can show you guys a few of them that have been growing for a little while. So you can see at different times of planting, the trees are going to be at different stages of growth. As you can see, we have some of our younger ones here with just some of their first leaves, but you can see already that they're starting to take that shape of the maple leaf from the flag. Some of them are particularly red, part of where they get the name, the red maple, from. And I could take a bigger one here. As you can see, we only started these not that long ago, only really a few weeks, and they're already getting this big. By the end of this season, they might be twice the height or more, and sky's the limit after that. So, as you can see, lots of red maples, lots more red maples, but that's not all we're growing here. We have cherries here. Those are white birch there. These are all balsam fir, more red maples, more cherries. And back here we have white pine, my favorite tree. And I can show you guys what these looked like when they were just little babies inside. So if you want to follow me into the greenhouse. By the way, this fence is to protect all these when they're outside, because just because they're strong enough to be outdoors in the weather, in the elements, in the rain, doesn't mean they're strong enough to take care of themselves if predators come after them. Pests, things like rabbits and moose, like Cedric was talking about, would love to eat these if they got the chance. So while they're so small and delicate, we try to keep them as protected as we can until they've gotten big and strong enough to survive out in the wild. So here is our lovely greenhouse, and this is what all those red maples out there once looked like. This is a particularly young one, just the first of his true leaves starting to come in there. But after a week or two, you'll start to see them look a little more like this. You can see the maple leaf shape already beginning to take, and a little bit older. Eventually they make it their way to the age that you see out there. So right now, we're also planting another species, yellow birch, another native tree of Newfoundland and the boreal forest. Behind me, I have our summer student, Brody, who's taking on the delicate operation of taking these seeds and bringing them to their next home. Brody, you want to tell us what you're doing?
Sure. So here we have our tiny yellow birch seeds, and each one of these tubes needs a single seed put in it. So we pick one that's already got a radical growing out of it. That's the structure that will eventually become the tree's roots. We gently pick it up by the edge where there once was a wing on the seed. And after making a tiny, tiny hole, we put the seed in, gently cover it, and give it a scoop of vermiculite, which will help keep the seed damp so it can grow. And it goes back in the tray, and eventually a tree will come out.
On to the next one. We have many, many seeds. And if you're interested, the seeds from the yellow birch actually came from something that looks like a cone right here. So these are produced on the edges of the tree branches, and inside of all these little scales you can see here are these little tiny seeds. And there are thousands and thousands of seeds on every tree when they're producing their cones, and eventually they cast them off into the wind, and some of them will grow on their own. Over here in our greenhouse, we have a bunch of our white pine. So the pines I was talking about outside once looked like these little guys. And these are my favorite tree for many reasons. There's an interesting history that they have here in North America, but one of the main reasons I like them is because once they've gotten really big and really old, after hundreds of years, they take on these big, scraggly appearances that they have so much personality, so much character. I always find when I find a really big old pine, I just have to sort of stop for a moment and appreciate it, because they really deserve it when they've taken that long to get so big, so old, so craggy and gnarled. So these are the little white pines, but out here we have some of the ones that I showed you before. These have grown for a little while now. As you can see, they've gotten a fair bit taller. And if you want to zoom in a little bit on this, you can see these are just this season's growth. These needles were here last year, but these are growing. Sorry, it's probably hard to see if it's moving around like that, but eventually those will all turn into their own branches, and this thing will grow quickly into a full tree. But where it's going to grow into a full tree, we have to decide, because we're growing them here and they can't stay here forever. So eventually, where they're going to get planted, could be somewhere very hard to get to. And the way to get them to them out there is with what we have over here. It's a frame that we pack with seedlings and fly with a helicopter into the backcountry. And if Cedric, who can return to the camera, can explain the process.
Thank you, Owen. Your passion is contagious. So that's it. We got our trees grown up, and basically a lot of the trees come in little trays like this. 67 or so trees per tray. And what we had to do is to build these big structures, 4 by 8 feet tall, 3 levels. And this is what we're going to load with trees. So what we take these trays of trees, and we first, load the first level, we load the second level, and we have 33 trays per level. So 99 trays is whatever we're able to fit in for about 6,000 trees. And what we did, this big frame would be in a trailer. So basically, you might see some pictures. We have the trailers, we load the trees, and then we had nets that would go around them. We drive these trees up to a place where a helicopter will meet us. And we have a couple of videos to show you how, with the net around this, a helicopter will hook it. We just hook it, and then it flies up. It goes exactly where it has to go in the backcountry. So let's have a little watch at these helicopter maneuver. And eventually, the frame would get down to the backcountry. We have the team on the ground starting to take these trees out. And we have the tree planters coming in themselves too in helicopter. Basically, the crew is there with their bags. They're going to jump in the helicopter, move up, and take care of planting the trees. And we'll leave you on a few images of the team planting the trees. You see there, the helicopter is there, and then getting on the helicopter. And down in the field, so each planters have their bag loaded with trees. Take the shovel, put the holes, and put the trees in place. And our first season was last fall, and you can see them moving all together in the line. It's very impressive.
This is certainly making science look pretty epic. We're going to get our final few pictures here. There we are. Look at that. What a great spot to go planting trees. Geez.
Not a bad place, surrounded by fjords and ever-changing, beautiful skies.
So I know we've got a quick video here of a tree planter out in the field, and we'll cue that up for everyone, and then we'll come back there.
Perfect, Jesse. Yeah. All right. So basically, now we hope you've learned a lot about the seeds, about the seedlings, about our operation in the greenhouse, about how we fly the trees, about how the trees are planted. But we thought this is the National Environment Week, and we should celebrate this. We want to plant a tree in honor of the week, and let's do it with you. Let's go find Owen, and we'll just conclude by having a little tree planted.
Hello again. Kept my little pine here, and it's going to find its new home. So, you've already watched a little video of the process of planting a tree, but something you got to bear in mind whenever you're going to plant a tree is you make sure you pick the right spot. So if we were to go deep into the forest in there and decide that's where we wanted to plant a tree, all the branches up above would shade out and it would have a hard time growing there. So we've chosen a spot on the edge of the tree line so that there's still lovely sky open above it that will allow it to photosynthesize. And if I can request that Cedric take that thing, I will plant the tree. So open up, nice wide hole, find nice dirt to use. You place your tree in the ground, cover up all the roots to make sure that there's nothing exposed to dry out. And you want to make sure the hole is nice and tight so that nothing will dry out around the base. And there you are with a lovely pine tree that someday could be hundreds of years old and absolutely enormous.
And because it's Environmental Week, we're going to put this, and I was thinking we'll put a little orange flag too around it, just to make sure that it's visible that we have our official National Environment Week 2024 tree right here. Maybe a little support there, but that's perfect. It's been a joy. Thank you, Owen. Thank you, Brody, for joining us. that's pretty much the main stories we wanted to share with you, classrooms. But now, if there are any questions about what you've just learned, please bring the questions on.
Oh, well, a big thank you to you all at Gros Morne. What a special, special program. And how nice to end with a planting of a tree, a perfect capstone to Canadian Environment Week. Couldn't think of a better thing to myself. We've got some Cochrane, Alberta classes live with us. I'm going to give you guys a second to get your thoughts together, and we'll come by for some questions. YouTubers, if you want to chime in, we'd love to hear from you as well. The more the merrier over our next 15 minutes together or so. We're going to start with, how many trees do you plant in a year? Is there a set amount? Have you been increasing this? Anything you can share on total volume of new saplings?
I'll cover this one because I'll let you go with it most technical. So many of you might have heard about the 2 billion trees program, which is a big Canada program all across this country between a few years back and 2030. By 2030, we want to have 2 billion trees planted. And Gros Morne, the operation here, is part of that. And we started kind of smaller scale, but we're kind of ramping up to have more and more. Our main goal here in the park is to plant 1 million trees. Now, this is a fair number. Last year was our first season. At the end of last summer, we went in the ground for the first time with the planters. We planted 120,000 trees, which means for 3 times more. So we want to have 300,000 trees next year. 300,000 trees this summer and the next 2 years. So if you do the math, that'll be 3 times 300,000, 900,000 plus the 20,000 we got. So we would be just over 1 million trees, which means the operation would be different. We'll need to have planters here for a longer period of time, more planters. The frame we showed you, we had 3, we'll move up to at least 6. And we need to produce trees, and we produce some trees, but we also do partnership. And one of our partnership is the Provincial Nursery here in Newfoundland and Labrador that has produced a lot of trees for us, lots of fir trees from our own seeds in the park, and a lot of spruce trees. And they are the one that have brought us the bigger bulk of trees. The trees we looked at earlier with Owen, a big diversity. We want to complete and continue that diversity in the ground. So this is it. 1 million.
1 million trees. Very cool. We're going to have to roll up our sleeves to do that together, but that's exciting. And when you get your 1,000,003 in the ground, you call us and we'll do a live broadcast, okay? Be a big day. We're going to do our White Brought Cochrane crew. If you guys want to come on in and unmute your mic, you are good to go for our first question. Hey, guys, more fun to be live. Hello, unmute. Come chat with us. Crawford, we're coming to you guys next. Let's see.
Okay, Ariane, come ask a question. How long does it take for one of the trees to grow as tall as a person?
Ooh, good question.
All right. Depends on the tree, of course. Not only the species, but where the tree is growing and what the tree has available to it as far as resources are concerned. Because if we were to have planted this tree that we just planted, like I was saying, deeper inside of the forest, when all around it and all above it are other trees, much bigger trees, with so little sunlight getting to the needles or the leaves, it would have a really hard time growing quickly. It might survive, and it might be able to take advantage of one of the bigger trees falling down later if the wind were to knock it over or something like that. But if it were to just be in the canopy, underneath the canopy, it might just die there. It might never get to be a big tree. However, if you have a tree in perfect conditions, beautiful soil, lots of nutrients, compost, fertilizers, whatever it is, and full sun all the time, all day long, trees like this, a white pine, can grow like double their height every year easily, if not more. Within, once again, it always depends on the tree. Some trees are more vigorous than others, but you can have a tree taller than me within 5 years pretty easily, given good conditions. There are lots of trees that grow much slower than that.
Very cool, and good thing that we gave our tree the best possible shot. Great question, guys. All right, we're going to head to our Crawford crew. Come on in, and you're good to go. Hey, threes.
Okay, Zian.
Once you plant the seed, how long does it take until it's ready to transfer it to the ground?
Yeah, great questions, Ian.
Well, once again, it can depend on the tree and it can depend on the species. There's always lots of factors and variables in this. But generally speaking, when you have a seed, like you were seeing Brody planting earlier, that needs at least one full summer of growing under good conditions, with us watering it and us feeding it with fertilizer all through the summer. And at the end of that summer, oftentimes they will have put on enough growth and will have strengthened their stems enough that they could be planted out in the wild and they could do just fine on their own. And technically, in the wild, when seeds just fall as they do from mature trees, they grow there too. They start growing and they live their life and wherever the seed lands. But for our purposes, we're trying to give them the best chance possible. So we're sort of babying them a little bit at first to let them get nice and strong. So oftentimes, even a second full growing season will elapse before we'll take them out into the wild, just to make sure that they have had lots of time to absorb lots of food, lots of nutrients, and they have the best chance. But at least a year, sometimes 2 years. And if you're to go to a garden center at a store somewhere, you can buy trees that are 5, 6, 7 years old, and they're taller than me. But that's a very different kind of operation than what we're doing.
I want to follow up on something because you highlighted that you sort of fence in the things to prevent them from being eaten by moose. We highlighted the moose barrens at the beginning where it becomes grassland. I remember growing up in parks in Ontario where they'd set aside areas of forest that would have a deer fence to prevent deer from getting in, and they'd be so much more lush and incredible than all the rest of the area where deer are able to munch in it. So when you're planting these trees in the backcountry, is there anything that you're doing to prevent moose from getting to them? Are you hoping for the best? Is it that they're a certain age? What's the deal?
Yes, excellent question, Jesse. And I'd like to bring us back to when we had to take decision, what are we doing with the moose? And fencing the park was actually an option that was considered. But this park is about 250 kilometers by 100 kilometers wide, almost 2,000 kilometers square. It quickly became obvious that it would not be feasible. And we look at other options, reintroducing the native predator that was the Newfoundland wolf. We looked at a bunch of different things. But one thing we done as well is to create some exclosure, some little enclaves. And the purpose was not to keep the moose out. It's just too big of a territory. So we just have to accept the moose are here. The main way to keep the moose under control is to keep their number under control. So that's what we're doing. But we have 7 or 8 places where we have small exclosure, and we even have one trail, Bakersbrook Falls Trail, where we have an exclosure which is 100 meters by 100 meters. And we set up that in 2009, so about 15 years ago. And then when you walk out there, you see the jungle. So basically, absolutely, a forest here without the moose is doing beautifully, but now it's part of the ecosystem. It's not native, so it was introduced, but it's a big part of the Newfoundland culture. So we just have to accept it. But it not been possible to fence. However, one thing that just comes to my mind, when you drive some highways here in Newfoundland, there's different parts of the highway where some fences have been set up in that purpose to, well, I guess also to limit a collision with moose, but basically in the park, too big to be fenced.
It's certainly quite the grand landscape for anyone who ever has the chance to come out to the western coast of Newfoundland. Hard to protect a little bit of everything, but I do remember the Bakersbrook Falls Trail from having walked it myself. It's very, very cool, and so glad we got a little plug-in for that. We're going to head back to our live classes in just a minute for another round of questions, but we've got Miss Lada, Peel Virtual Elementary School. They want to know what inspires you both to do the work that you do every day. Is there a reason that you're so keen on forests out there?
I'll do my quick answer and then I'll let Owen share his passion. Yeah, for me, I would say everybody, when you have a chance, go visit Parks Canada sites. It's a beautiful mission because you protect these beautiful places for the future forever, for you kids, for your kids forever. And what I really like in my life is nature and culture as well, but I love to be outdoors and I love to meet people, and I'm able to do these 2 dreams in my life because I live in this natural place and I share this beauty with visitors every year. So this is my quick take on what keeps me passionate about what I do with Parks Canada.
And I feel quite similarly in many ways. I think about how many positive experiences I've had out in natural spaces, out in the wild, in remote areas, and how much peace it's brought me, how much joy, and the thought of being able to contribute to that being more accessible to more people, for them to feel the same things I've felt. I can't imagine something better to dedicate myself to. So this feels like where I should be, what I should be doing.
What a beautiful answer, guys. And I mean, honestly, it's been really nice over the course of the whole year, not just with the Gros Morne, but Parks Canada teams coast to coast to coast in several of our series. I can honestly say I've never run across a group of people that are more keen on their jobs and getting to share this than Parks Canada team. So kids, if you're ever keen, there's hundreds of different kinds of jobs at Parks Canada. And if you love natural spaces, if you love getting outdoors and wildlife and incredible scenes and vistas, there's so much to explore and discover as a visitor and as an employee. So love that question. Thanks, Miss Lattice Class. We're going to head back to our Weissbrock crew. Unmute your mic, come back in and Cochrane, and Crawford, you're next. Hey, guys. Oh, wait, for whatever reason, there you go. Hey.
How many types of trees have you guys planted?
Ooh.
Different
Planted?
species.
Are two different questions. Technically, so far, we haven't planted that much diversity because the majority of our trees that we've planted have been black spruce and balsam fir. Those are the dominant trees in the ecosystems within the park, and so we're really focusing on them for the majority of our planting. However, as you can see, I was rhyming off a few of the different species that we're growing in there, and different species will end up in different places. We have at least 6 species that we've put in the ground now, I suppose, with more to come. We're collecting more seeds as they become available from the trees around us. And by the end of this project, we will probably have planted at least one of almost every woody plant that grows in Gros Morne at one point or another.
Maybe I can add, because we have a fresh report that came off press yesterday, and there's 6 main types of trees that we have grown so far. And so there was the black spruce, the balsam fir, then there's the larch. It's a little tree that will lose its needle in the fall. The white pine, which you've seen, the yellow birch, and the red maple that we talked about. So these are kind of the main species we work on because they are part of the ecosystem here, and we want to continue that diversity. But we're kind of experimenting a few things here and there, and some work better than others, but these are the 6 main types we're growing.
Cool. Thanks, gentlemen. That was great. Our Crawford crew, come on back in, guys, and take us away. Hey.
Sure.
I have 2 questions.
Go for it.
How long does it take for the tree to actually sprout?
Yeah. And what's your second one?
I forget.
Oh, that's okay.
I suppose the process of getting a seed to sprout can be pretty interesting. A lot of the tree species that live in these latitudes up in the boreal forest, they are adapted to the winter. So they are used to being produced on a tree and being cast off the tree in the wind or whatever it might be, landing on the ground and not germinating right away. They're expecting a winter. So we have to mimic the effects of a winter on a seed, basically. So we store the seeds in a cold enough and moist enough environment for enough time to basically mimic what a winter would do to the seed. And that is like a trigger for the seed to know that it's time to wake up. It's called stratification while they're in that cold. We use a refrigerator, and you can do it at home with seeds if you want to. So after they've had their time in the fridge, and different species require different lengths of time, we take them out of the fridge and let them wake up, basically. So once you start to see them crack open, like the seeds that Brody was transplanting in there, they're just starting to emerge. The little radicle, the early root is just starting to come out. And once they're at that stage, just being born, basically, they go into the soil. And it can be weeks until you got to start to see something that really looks like a plant. It's a slow process at first because all they've got to work with is whatever energy that they've stored in the seed, whatever sugars or starches they've managed to hold onto in there. But once that radicle has started to work its way out into the soil and it starts to produce the little root hairs where it brings in nutrients, that's when it can really start to grow, and it really starts to look like a plant then. It has proper leaves, and then it's go from there.
You guys really are wildly passionate about this. I love it. Thank you so much. What a treat to end Environment Week. We're going to take 2 more questions. Time flies and you're having fun. So Miss Lattice Class just want to know which tree takes the longest to grow, and then we'll wrap up with sort of a final message after that.
Something for this I'd like to share. Which tree takes the longest to grow? So just like Owen mentioned before, it would depend on your type of tree, but it very much depends on the condition. We did talk a little bit about Gros Morne. Gros Morne is a very diverse park ecologically. There's incredible rock substrates. So I told you some mountain came from deep in the ground in the Earth's mantle. There's actually a mountain in this park, flat as a table, all orange because it's rusting iron. It's called the tablelands. And there's a lot of heavy metal in these rocks. So iron and magnesium and copper, chromium, zinc, cobalt, and all of these minerals prevent the growth from plants. So most plants are not even able to grow out there. But when you go and you start taking your time out there, it's like Zen gardens. Most plants have an horizontal growth, so they're going to grow as close as they can to the ground, protected from the winds and from with the snow in the winter. And some trees out there, so specific species are able to have enough adaptation to live there. And I'd just like to mention that some of the trees there are quite old, and it's mostly the juniper trees, common and creeping juniper. They are very, very small. They're not even knee-high, and they're twisted on the ground. And what we did in the spring, we took some trees that were brought down from the brooks, and we cut the little rings to be able to do the dendrochronology. And some trees are about 250 to 300 years old. So this is like a miniature old growth forest. The ring on this, you need a magnifying glass. It's tiny, tiny, tiny. And you think about these trees that are not even higher than your knees. They're all twisted. Their root system is big. But for me, it's very humbling because I know there's this old growth forest that grows in this very harsh environment, and it grows very, very slow. So it's a tree like you'd see not even an inch is the trunk, and 200 years old for that. So very slow growth.
It's really wild getting to hike some of the trails from a personal experience where you see these really tangly knotted roots, and it's the wildest little forest and right on the coast, and it's so cool. Again, we've got some of our teachers actually messaging that they're going to be coming to Gros Morne fairly soon. So Ms. Gonzalez, if you're coming, I hope you have a marvelous time. Enjoy the trails. Go check out the team there. They're the best. They're in the green shirts. You'll know them. I lied. Before I do a final message, we got a great question online. What happened to the wolves? So we're talking about some of the predators earlier. Do we know what happened to some of the things that were in Gros Morne or in Newfoundland before?
Good. I have a minute. You decide.
Well, I'm no historian, I guess, but from what I understand, history with the wolves here is that for a long time, people and wolves have not had a good relationship. There's been a lot of fear and a lot of people making rash decisions. So something happened here quite a long time ago is that the Newfoundland wolf was a native species here, and it was part of the ecosystem, a natural part of the balance of life. And the people who came from Europe, who colonized Newfoundland and built their lives here, anytime they would see a wolf, they'd be afraid of it. They'd be afraid of how dangerous the wolf could be, despite the wolves not being that dangerous. Wolves are smart enough to know that they shouldn't mess with humans, and they do leave humans alone. But of course, people being afraid like they would be every time they'd see one, or they were afraid for their livestock, if they have sheep or cows or something like that, they'd assume the wolf was going to kill their valuable animals to them, and so they'd shoot them. And they would do that every time they would see them. And it happened generation after generation, that every time someone would see a wolf, it would be shot and killed. And eventually there were no wolves left, and there haven't been wolves on the island for many, many years now. And because of that, we don't have a predator on the island that we can trust to keep the ungulate population, like moose and caribou and stuff, under control in a natural manner. And that's why we have to resort to our own sort of human interventions in order to deal with problems, high populations.
This is a story that isn't just in Canada, it's all over the globe. People have persecuted predators for many centuries, and it's really only in the last 2 decades that we started to realize how important and integral they are to ecosystems. If they brought back wolves to the United States Southwest, it's really radically altered the ecosystem in a positive way. There's been more of these efforts all around the globe. So it sort of speaks to how we've changed our views of conservation and wildlife over the last few decades for the better. And so I'm really glad we got that question, and thank you for the nuanced answer. Gentlemen, before we wrap up, time flies and you're having fun, so we are nearing the end of the broadcast. Is there any final message you want to leave us with about forest health restoration, about Gros Morne, before we bring in our Cochrane classes to say thank you and farewell?
Leave this one to you.
Yes. My main message is get active wherever you live. There is little protected places. You go to little parks. Get active in making sure that nature around you is preserved. Enjoy it for yourself. Share it with your friends. Whenever you get a chance, go hug a tree. This is part of our life, and it's so great to be able to know that we're part of something bigger, and to know that in some places we have these little haven of nature that are protected forever. So keep visiting these places, keep cherishing them, and sharing them with the people you love.
Go for it, Owen.
Oh, I was just echoing exactly Cedric's. There are places that are being preserved, and they deserve to stay preserved. So go out and enjoy them, and talk about them, share them with your friends. That's how they're going to keep being protected.
It's going to be a beautiful weekend here in Newfoundland. I'm already off to a park myself. I hope our classes are too. A big thank you to all you as a great audience for this week. Check this out on YouTube. Share with your friends. There's so much more to explore. We're going to bring in our Cochrane classes. If you want to unmute your microphones, White Rock Crawford, thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful day.